Welcome to today's lesson in how to protect your information while online. For today's notes, what we're going to do is I'm going to show a PowerPoint or a Google Slides presentation on the screen in this movie. You will see along the way that there are some highlighted blue items that are bold and blue and underlined. What I'm going to have you do is sometime during the week, I want you to fill in those highlighted underlined sections into the notes for tech safety. This will be section 1 for personal internet safety. So let's get started. So I'm going to start my presentation here for tech safety. This first part of the notes is going to be about personal internet safety, which is how to protect you and your information while you're using the internet. Why do we have to worry about technology safety? Because of identity theft. This is the highlighted item here that you would have to fill in on your notes. Identity theft is when we end up paying a higher prices for goods and services because money lost to online theft and fraud. So that's why it matters and why we need to really care about identity theft and online safety. Information safety. There's two different types of information about yourself that you need to consider when you are sharing information about yourself with other people. The first one is private information. Private information is information about yourself that you would never share with anyone. You need to share it as a need-to-know basis only. Again, that's the part you're going to fill in on the notes. So this is information you would put in on a form, like if you're applying for college, applying for scholarships, applying to buy a house or a credit card, a job application. Those are things, but these are things so private that you would not post them on social media, in a text, put them in an email, anything like that. So we're going to look at some examples of private information. Now, in your notes, I want you to write down at least 3 of these in your notes. You don't have to write all of them, but get at least 3. So examples of private information include your full name. That means your first, middle, last name, suffix, like if you're Brian J. Jones III, don't tell people that. They don't need to know it. They just know you're Brian, okay? Postal address, that's where you live, your street address. If people know your address, they could find a lot more information about you. And we're going to talk about that later. But don't give your address out to people who don't need to know it. Email addresses, again, otherwise you're making yourself open to spammers and phishing attacks, which we're going to talk about later on next week. Phone numbers, again, not a good idea to post publicly. That's a private need-to-know share only. Passwords, I don't care who it is. Don't give your passwords to anybody. You could give it to your mom and dad, but right now, that's the only people you could share your passwords with. Don't trust your best friend, your boyfriend, anything like that. Any good company could reset your password for you. They don't need to ask you for your password. Credit card numbers, don't post those online. Your social security number, which is your official United States ID number for tax purposes. You might not know what your social security number is, but I bet your parents do, because when you were born or when you were adopted, you actually they applied for a social security card in your name to make sure that's the way you show you're a citizen, that in your birth certificate. So it's one of the really important documents that you need to protect, and you need to really protect that number. And your mother's maiden name, which is your mother's original last name before she got married. If she got married, if she changed it. Some women change their last names when they get married, some do not, and that's all good. But however, on most credit card companies, when you apply for a credit card, that is the number one question. What is your mother's maiden name? And so I'm going to make up my mom's fictional. Let's say before my mom married my dad, her last name was Jones. It wasn't. But let's say it was, Donna Jones. Could easily find different, take her credit card and call it and change the password, find out how much she has to spend very easily if I know a few bits of information about her. So that's why we don't share this private information with anybody who doesn't need to know it. Personal information is different, and this is information about yourself that is always okay to share with somebody online, and it's something that they would kind of figure out if they met you in person. So some examples of this, again, that's the blank you need to fill in, are, again, write down 3 of these in your notes. You don't have to write them all unless you really want to. Some examples is your age, okay? It's okay to say you're 14 or 16 or 49. But don't lie. Don't lie about your age. Don't say you're 25 when you're only 15, okay? You could decide whether you're sharing whether you're male or female or otherwise, how many brothers and sisters you have, your favorite bands. You know, guys, I talk about Pearl Jam all the time. Favorite foods, I talk about my chai tea all the time, and my love for pizza and Mexican food. How many pets you have, the name of your pet, your opinions. Those are all okay to share about yourself. You could talk about your favorite colors. You could talk about, jewelry you like, but you don't want to really share your private information or information that you're going to put into a password, okay? And that's the really important piece here. Identity theft is when somebody uses your private information, not your personal information, but your private information, like your name, social security number, your address, your credit card numbers, without your permission to commit fraud or other crimes. So they're pretending to be you, which is fraud. They're not you. They're using your card in your name, and that is against the law. So that is what the definition of identity theft, to make sure this gets in your notes. It's super important. So let's talk about one of the best ways to really protect yourself online is to have a strong password. And we're going to talk about different techniques for your passwords, but we use a lot of these for your school accounts as well. You want to make sure you have 8 or more characters in your password. So digits, like numbers, letters, symbols, a combination of things. So letters, numbers, characters, symbols should all be included. Uppercase, which is capital letters, and lowercase letters. Don't use obvious sequences of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or A, B, C, D, E. Mix it up. Don't use repeated characters like 9999, 3333, AAAA. Like, those are easy for a computer program to guess. Don't use private or personal information in your password, like your login name, like your street address, your birth date, your pet's name. Like, I would never use Thor or Pearl Jam as my password. That would be stupid. That's the first thing people would guess. Use different passwords for different types of online accounts. Don't use the same password for everything. And I know this is hard, but I will tell you, you really need to protect the passwords for logins associated with money. Those should always be a unique password for each account. So if you have a bank account or a savings account, make sure that password is super hard. It's super complicated. You have to look it up every time. I don't care, but it should be hard, and it should not be used again for something else, because if they get into one of your accounts, they could get into other accounts. And funny story, I will tell you, this just happened to me. One of my passwords got hacked, and somebody displayed it on some dark website, and people were getting it, and I've been getting a ton of spam about it, but also somebody was logging in under that login ID and password to my Netflix account. And so luckily I got an email saying, hey, somebody in New York City is signing into your Netflix account. So I called Netflix, and they changed it for me, and I reset it to a much different password. But I also had to change 400 other passwords that I used the same password to for different accounts, because I didn't want them to guess on any of those other sites. It took me 3 days to change all those passwords. So don't do that. Have a different password for different online accounts. Now, for instance, I use the same password for like Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon, because those are all my like media streaming websites. But that's not my same password I use for school stuff, and that's not my same password I use for my college stuff, and I use a different password for my bank stuff and a different password for like my family stuff. So have a couple different passwords that you kind of have a rotation for different types of activities. So some examples of good passwords. What I like to do is I like to take a phrase or really the hardest vocabulary words that you've ever heard. Look them up in the dictionary if you're not sure. But what I like to do is I like to go on and I like to change the letters to like symbols, to capital letters, to numbers. So these are zeros for in here. And I like to use my dyslexia for good. So like this word started as dichotomy, but I flipped the M into a W because, hey, why not? Dyslexia does that for me automatically. I'll just leave it there. So this original word was abysmal, and I changed the letters until they were harder to guess. This one was dichotomy. This one was millennium. And this one, Bieber fever. It's just funny. These are examples of bad passwords on this side, which is something easy like password 99. Pearl Jam. Again, why would I use that as a password? That's horrible. That it's my license plate. Like I love Pearl Jam, but I would not use them as my password. Don't use a simple word and add a number to it. That is not hard enough. And don't make it super easy with repeated items. Some password safety tips. Don't write down your passwords on a piece of paper like on a Post-it note and post it right by your computer. That's not a good idea. It's okay to write your password down, but keep it like in a little notebook on a big piece of paper, but hide that somewhere at your desk. Like if you have a certain book that's always on your desk, just open it to page 100 and put your password list there, like if you're not sure what to do. Or if you have a desk calendar and you want to keep passwords there, go to your birthday and write down the passwords on the day of your birthday. But come up with a little system. Like I have these little Post-it pads. What my mom does is for each Post-it, she has a different login ID and password. And we keep that on a certain place on her desk that only her and I know, because I'm the only one who logs into her accounts for her. So it's okay to have a system, but make sure that it's not displayed on your desk. And it's okay to have a digital version of this as well. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Don't share your passwords with other people. Again, unless, like I have my mom's passwords because I do all her computer stuff for her. She doesn't actually touch the computer. But otherwise, no one has my passwords. Don't use the same password for all of your accounts, which we already talked about. If you have like accounts on your phone, use the password or face recognition function on your phone to keep people from looking through your devices. Because there's a lot of information on your phone. And don't use private or personal information in your password. Like as much as you like your dog, don't use your dog's name. Don't use your birthday. Don't use your phone number. Okay? Think about like things about yourself that you know, but no one else really knows. So for instance, like I know the date, a PIN number I used to use, I don't use it anymore, was the date I bought my first car. Well, no one knows what that is, but I do. So I was able to use that as a 4-digit number for a lot of years because no one else knew what it was. Or you can use somebody's name, like who was the first boy I kissed when I was 14. So I knew that. No one else really knew that. So I could use that as my password. So it could be whatever you want. It's personal information. It doesn't have to be appropriate. Sometimes I use what I call creative swear words as my passwords, and I also use creative spelling for it with numbers and symbols to make it hard for people because I don't want to make it easy for people to guess my passwords. Don't let people look at your keyboard when you're typing in your password or on your phone. Yeah, it's okay, perfectly okay to ask somebody, could you please turn your head, or for you to move your body. And if not, don't type it in until they do. Like, you're protecting your information. That's not cool for them to just stare at your password. Okay, as I've mentioned before, it's okay to keep a list of login IDs and passwords either on paper, or, as long as you don't have it out in the open on your desk. But you could also keep a digital version of a login list as well. That's what I do. Mine is like 9 pages long at this point, size super tiny font because it's my job. I'm going to show you an example. This is a fake example. These are not my real passwords, by the way. And the trick for this, so this is I don't use the word login or password anywhere in this document. And you can see what I do is I put my login here, like admin / blah, blah, 47. That way I know what comes before the slash is my login, what comes after it is my password. And so this would be an example of something that I use. For all of my stuff. Like, this is totally fine to use. Just make sure you don't call it like password document. Call it something like I call mine hush hush stuff, or call it Tyler Treasures or code. Call it like a code name, so you know what it is, but no one else would guess what that is. And if you want to ask me about this later, guys, please ask me about it. I'd rather you ask me about it ahead of time and that instead of getting your passwords hacked by somebody later. Let's talk about offline and online identity. Online identity is how you present yourself online and how people will perceive you based on what you're showing to the world in a platform. So it could be the images that represent you, which is known as your avatar. It could be, and what's interesting about that is it could be a picture of you. It could be a real picture of you, or it could be a picture of somebody else. Avatars are online images of online accounts that represent you, but may not be real pictures of yourself. And so if you don't use a real picture of yourself and you're presenting yourself as a different person or different type of person, you're putting yourself at risk. And one of the things, there's a whole MTV show about this called Catfish. I'm sure you've heard of it, where people have, been scammed by people pretending to be like, a pretty girl or a cute guy, and they're actually somebody else trying to mess with them. There's a lot of examples of this online. We're not going to go into the examples of that, but think about how you're presenting yourself online, what you're suggesting. And it could be from the clothes you're wearing to the, however you're modeling yourself in the picture. It could be the things you're saying. You have to be careful about how you're representing. So think about how people may perceive you online if they don't know you in real life. And it could be like a different personality, a different physicality. Like, yes, I'm a short, chunky girl, but maybe online I want to be tall and thin and 25 years old forever. Which is nice when you're playing Guitar Hero or, a video game, but maybe not. That's a good thing to do in the business world or in a professional role. That would be kind of creepy. And for some people, it could really help level the playing field over real life. However, it could also be used to deceive people online. So my advice for your online identity is be who you are. Like, people want to know you, not who you think people want you to be. Just be yourself. And somebody is going to like you, for being yourself. By the way, offline identity is called real life. Okay, that's what we're doing every day. So, and that's actually more important than all the online stuff. Even though we're in online school right now, real life matters more. Okay, so always remember that. So we're going to stop here in the notes for today. Make sure you have filled in all the blanks that were highlighted blue. And if you have any issues, please see me about that. You could rewatch this video if you missed anything in the notes, or if you need the master from me, just email me and we'll set up a Zoom time, okay? Great. Well, you're off to your next activity for today, our next class for today. So you are done with learning strategies for me today. Make sure you go to Mrs. Wise's class on Wednesday and Thursday this week, because you're going to have her those 2 days. Okay? Have a great day.